Jiwon Kim stood in the observation deck of Earth Station Alpha and watched the stars through the massive transparent wall. The coffee in her hand had gone cold an hour ago, but she had not noticed. Her mind was focused on the message that had arrived 3 hours earlier. The Galactic Council wanted to see her immediately. The message had been simple and direct. Humanity had 72 hours to report to the Council Station Concordia. They were to discuss what the aliens called the human problem. If no representative came within that time, Earth and all human colonies would face what they called necessary action. Jiwon had been Earth's main diplomat to the galaxy for 5 years. She knew what necessary action meant. It meant war. It meant the possible end of humanity as a free species. The thought made her stomach twist, but her face remained calm. She had learned long ago that showing fear to aliens was the fastest way to lose their respect. The door behind her opened with a soft hiss. Admiral Minho Park walked in with quick steps. His military uniform was perfect as always, but Jiwon could see worry in his dark eyes. Behind him came Dr. Subin Lee carrying a datapad filled with information about the galaxy's major powers. "They really mean it this time," Minho said without greeting. "Our intelligence shows massive fleet movements from all 5 major powers. The reptilian hegemony has moved 3 battle groups toward the outer colonies. The Swarm Collective is gathering bioships near the trade routes. Even the Machine Alliance is powering up their war constructs." Subin looked up from her datapad. "The political situation is worse than we thought. Species that have been enemies for thousands of years are working together against us. The savage clans are actually cooperating with the Astral Communion. That should be impossible." Jiwon turned away from the stars to face her 2 closest advisors. "What exactly are they afraid of?" "Us," Subin said simply. "We have expanded to over 200 worlds in just 2 centuries. Most species take millennia to spread that far. We have formed trade agreements with 47 different alien races. We have developed terraforming technology that can make dead worlds livable in decades instead of centuries. We have military innovations that make our ships punch far above their weight class. In other words," Minho added grimly, "we are doing too well too fast. The established powers see us as a threat to their control of the galaxy." Jiwon sat down in one of the chairs facing the observation window. "Tell me about their military capabilities." Minho activated a holographic display in the center of the room. Images of alien warships appeared in the air between them. The reptilian hegemony has the largest traditional fleet. Their ships are built like flying fortresses, heavy armor, massive weapons designed for long campaigns of conquest. They have been the dominant military power for over 10,000 years. The display changed to show insect-like organic ships that seemed to pulse with life. The Swarm Collective uses biotechnology. Their ships are grown rather than built. They can repair damage by literally healing themselves. A single queen ship can birth hundreds of smaller vessels in days. Their numbers are almost unlimited. Next came ships that looked like they were made of pure energy contained in force fields. The Astral Communion evolved beyond physical form millions of years ago. Their vessels are energy constructs that can phase through normal matter. They can attack from dimensions we barely understand. The display shifted to show geometric metal constructs covered in weapons. The Machine Alliance builds ships like mathematical equations. Perfect efficiency, no wasted motion or resources. Their targeting systems never miss and their tactics are calculated to the smallest detail. Finally came crude but massive vessels that looked like flying asteroids covered in guns. The savage clans build their ships for one purpose only: to destroy the enemy through overwhelming firepower. No finesse, no subtlety, just pure destructive capability. Jiwon studied each design carefully, and they are all working together now. For the first time in recorded galactic history, Subin confirmed, our expansion has scared them enough to put aside millions of years of mutual hatred. What about our allies? Jiwon asked. Minho's expression grew darker. The smaller species are too afraid to stand with us openly. They depend on trade with the major powers for survival. A few have sent private messages of support, but none will risk economic destruction by helping us publicly. Jiwan stood and walked back to the observation window. Earth hung below them, a blue and white marble in the darkness. Billions of humans lived on that world, unaware that their entire species was about to be judged by powers they had never seen. "I need to go to Concordia," she said finally. "Absolutely not," Minho replied immediately. "It could be a trap. They could arrest you the moment you arrive. Then they would have our chief diplomat as a hostage while they attack our colonies. Or," Jiwan said calmly, "I might be able to find a way to avoid this war entirely." Subin looked up sharply. "You have an idea?" "Maybe," Jiwan admitted. "I need to review all our deep space sensor data from the past year. Everything from the Outer Rim territories. Also, I want all the historical files on galactic conflicts. Not just the official records, but the myths and legends that each species tells about their ancient past." "Why?" Minho asked. "Because sometimes the things that bring enemies together reveal more about them than the things that keep them apart," Jiwan replied. 5 species that have hated each other for millions of years do not suddenly become friends just because humans are expanding quickly. There has to be something else. Something bigger that we are not seeing. Subin began typing on her datapad. "I can have all the files ready in 6 hours." "Good," Jiwan said. "Admiral, I want you to quietly begin preparations for a defensive war, but do not make any aggressive moves. If this goes badly, we need to be ready to protect Earth and the colonies. However, do not do anything that could be seen as preparing for an attack." Minho nodded reluctantly. "And if they refuse to listen to whatever you have planned?" Jiwan looked out at the stars again. Somewhere out there, vast alien fleets were moving toward human space. In 72 hours, she would be sitting in a room with representatives of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. They would expect her to surrender humanity's freedom or watch her species be destroyed. "Then we fight," she said simply. "But I do not think it will come to that. I think something else is happening here. Something that the Council does not want to admit even to themselves." 20 hours later, Jiwan sat in her private office reading through files that painted a disturbing picture. The deep space sensors had detected strange energy readings from beyond the galaxy's edge. Readings that did not match any known technology. 3 outer rim systems had suffered what the Council had called natural disasters in the past year. Solar flares that sterilized entire worlds, asteroid impacts that shattered moons, cosmic storms that wiped out all electronic systems in their path. But the sensor data suggested something else entirely. The disasters followed patterns. They moved from system to system in a logical progression. They targeted worlds with the highest concentrations of rare minerals and energy sources. Most disturbing of all, they left behind traces of unknown technology. As she read, Jiwan began to understand why the galaxy's greatest powers were suddenly afraid. They were not just afraid of human expansion. They were afraid of something much worse. Something that made humanity's rapid growth seem like a blessing rather than a threat. She closed the files and activated the communication system. "This is Ambassador Jiwan Kim, requesting immediate departure clearance for diplomatic mission to Concordia Station." The voice that answered sounded worried. "Ma'am, are you certain about this course of action?" "I am certain," Jiwan replied. "Send word to the Council that Earth's representative will arrive within the specified time limit." As her ship prepared for departure, Jiwan reviewed her strategy one final time. She would not go to Concordia as a defendant begging for mercy. She would go as someone bringing a warning about a danger that threatened every living being in the galaxy. The Council thought they were judging humanity, but Jiwan suspected that very soon they would need humanity more than they could possibly imagine. Concordia Station was larger than any structure Jiwan had ever seen. The diplomatic complex floated in neutral space between 3 star systems, its crystal and metal surfaces reflecting the light of distant suns. Ships from 1,000 different worlds docked at its ports, bringing representatives from across the galaxy to witness what many expected would be humanity's final judgment. Jiwan's ship approached the main docking bay under escort from Council security vessels. Through the viewport, she could see the massive scale of the station's construction. Each section was designed to accommodate different atmospheric and gravitational needs, creating a patchwork of architectural styles that represented the diversity of galactic civilization. Yeji-han sat beside her, monitoring communication channels and analyzing the positioning of other ships. As Earth's intelligence officer, she had spent the journey identifying which species had sent representatives and what their likely positions would be in the coming discussions. The reptilian hegemony has 3 diplomatic vessels here, Yeji reported. More than they usually send to council sessions. The Swarm Collective has brought one of their queen ships, which means they consider this extremely important. The Machine Alliance has sent a full computational matrix, and the Astral Communion has manifested 12 energy forms instead of their usual 3. And the Savage Clans? Ji-won asked. 2 war barges, Yeji replied grimly. They are not even pretending this is a peaceful diplomatic meeting. As their ship docked, Ji-won could feel the weight of history settling on her shoulders. What happened? In the next few hours could determine whether humanity continued to exist as a free species or became a footnote in galactic records. The interior of Concordia Station was designed to impress and intimidate. Corridors stretched for kilometers, their walls decorated with the artistic achievements of hundreds of worlds. Gravity shifted smoothly from section to section to accommodate different species, while atmospheric controls maintained perfect environmental conditions for each delegation. Ji-won and Yeji were escorted through the diplomatic quarter by a pair of mechanical guards from the Machine Alliance. The robots moved with perfect efficiency, their sensors constantly monitoring for threats while their programming ensured absolute neutrality in all diplomatic matters. The council chamber itself was a marvel of engineering and psychology. The Kakor room was designed as a vast amphitheater, with seating for thousands of representatives arranged in concentric circles around a central speaking platform. The architecture created natural acoustics that carried every word to every listener, while the lighting could be adjusted to highlight or obscure speakers as needed. But despite the thousands of seats, real power in the galaxy belonged to 5 groups, and they occupied special platforms that elevated them above the General Assembly. These were the civilizations that had shaped galactic politics for millions of years, and today they had united for one purpose: to decide humanity's fate. Chancellor Velok of the reptilian hegemony occupied the first platform. He was ancient, even by his species standards, his scaled skin bearing the scars of 100 battles and his golden eyes holding the wisdom and cunning of millennia. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of 10,000 worlds and the weight of the galaxy's oldest continuous government. Representatives of the Galactic Council, Velok began, his words translated into 1,000 languages simultaneously. We gather today to address a threat that has grown beyond acceptable limits. The species known as humanity has expanded across our galaxy with unprecedented speed and aggression. In merely 2 centuries, they have established colonies on over 200 worlds, formed alliances that disrupt established trade relationships, and developed military capabilities that challenge the stability our civilizations have maintained. For millions of years, the Chancellor activated a holographic display showing human expansion patterns across the galaxy. Red dots marked human colonies while connecting lines showed trade routes and alliance networks that spread like a web through dozens of star systems. This expansion follows no recognized pattern, Velok continued. They do not conquer through. Military might like the ancient powers. They do not assimilate species into a collective consciousness like the Swarm. They do not impose technological uniformity like the Machine Alliance. Instead, they form individual relationships with each species they encounter, adapting their approaches to fit local conditions and customs. This unpredictability makes them impossible to counter through traditional diplomatic means. Queen Speaker Thys rose from the second platform, her insectoid form towering above the assembly. Her natural chittering voice was translated by biomechanical implants that converted her communications into forms other species could understand. The Swarm Collective she represented controlled more worlds than any other single power, their bioships spreading across the galaxy like a living plague that consumed resources and converted them into more ships and more Swarm members. The human, Expansion pattern disrupts the natural order of galactic development, Theiss declared. For millions of years, species have expanded gradually, allowing established powers to maintain balance and prevent conflicts that could destroy entire sectors. Humans ignore these careful arrangements. They establish colonies in disputed territories, form trade agreements that undercut existing economic relationships, and introduce technological innovations that destabilize entire industries. The Queen Speaker's own holographic display showed economic data that painted humans as a chaotic force disrupting carefully maintained trade balances. Shipping routes that had remained stable for millennia were being abandoned as traders found more profitable arrangements with human colonies. Manufacturing centers that had supplied specific sectors for thousands of years were losing contracts to human terraforming and industrial technologies. Most concerning, Theiss continued, is their tendency to form alliances with species we had previously contained or controlled. 47 different alien races now have formal agreements with humanity. These species were carefully managed to prevent them from becoming threats to galactic stability. Human interference has freed them from these constraints and given them access to technologies and opportunities that upset the balance of power in dozens of sectors. Corvin manifested next, his energy-based form shifting between different wavelengths of light as he addressed the assembly. The astral communion he represented had evolved beyond physical existence millions of years ago, becoming beings of pure energy who viewed the material universe from a perspective other species could barely comprehend. Their technological capabilities bordered on the godlike, and their pronouncements carried the weight of near omniscience. From our elevated perspective, Corvin intoned, his voice seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, we observe patterns that lesser civilizations cannot perceive. Humanity represents a chaos factor that threatens the orderly development of galactic civilization. Their emotional decision-making processes create unpredictable variables that our most sophisticated probability calculations cannot account for. Corvin's display showed complex mathematical models that reduced civilizations to equations and probability curves. Human actions appeared as wild fluctuations that sent ripples of unpredictability through otherwise stable systems. The astral communion has spent eons guiding galactic development toward optimal outcomes, Corvin continued. We have prevented wars that would have destroyed entire species, guided technological development along safe paths, and maintained the delicate balance between competition and cooperation that allows civilization to flourish. Human unpredictability undermines these careful arrangements and introduces variables that could lead to catastrophic outcomes. Nexus Prime activated next. The geometric perfection of its mechanical form, a stark contrast to the organic and energy-based representatives, who had spoken before. The machine alliance it represented valued logic, efficiency, and optimization above all other considerations. Their analysis of human behavior was based on pure mathematical calculations, stripped of emotional bias or cultural interpretation. Analysis of human behavioral patterns reveals significant deviations from optimal strategic doctrine, Nexus Prime stated in a perfectly modulated electronic voice. Their military tactics prioritize adaptability over efficiency, creativity over proven methodologies, and individual initiative over centralized coordination. These approaches produce short-term successes, but create long-term instabilities that threaten systemic optimization. The machine's display showed tactical analyses of human military actions compared to established strategic principles. Human forces consistently violated fundamental rules of warfare, yet achieved victory through methods that defied logical explanation. Most problematic is their tendency to form emotional attachments to other species, Nexus Prime continued. Optimal diplomatic strategy requires the ability to sacrifice lesser allies for greater strategic advantages. Humans demonstrate consistent unwillingness to abandon allied species, even when logic dictates such actions would produce superior outcomes. This emotional thinking creates diplomatic inflexibility that prevents optimal conflict resolution. Finally, Gulrak of the Savage clans took his position. Unlike the other representatives, he made no attempt to appear civilized or dip. The silence that followed Jiwan's words was absolute. Thousands of representatives from across the galaxy stared at the human diplomat who had just claimed that their united judgment was based on a complete misunderstanding. The five major powers exchanged glances that carried the weight of millions of years of political experience. Chancellor Veloc was the first to respond, his ancient voice carrying a note of dangerous irritation. Ambassador Kim, your species faces extinction and you speak of warnings. This appears to be a desperate attempt to deflect attention from humanity's crimes against galactic order. Golrak actually laughed, a sound like grinding metal that echoed through the vast chamber. Humans think they can frighten the galaxy's greatest powers with empty threats. Your species has existed for barely 2 centuries. We have fought wars, longer than your entire civilization. But Jiwan did not appear frightened or desperate. Instead, she activated her personal data pad and began uploading information to the chamber's main display system. I understand your skepticism. Your species have dominated the galaxy for so long that you cannot imagine a threat you have not already faced. That blindness is exactly why you failed to see what is coming. The chamber's holographic displays activated, showing deep space sensor readings that stretched across dozens of sectors. The data was complex and technical, but certain patterns were unmistakable even to non-specialists. Energy signatures that did not match any known technology. Movement patterns that suggested coordination across impossible distances. And most disturbing of all, the systematic disappearance of entire star systems. For the past 18 months, G1 continued, our deep space monitoring stations have tracked anomalous readings from beyond the galactic rim. We initially dismissed them as natural phenomena, but the patterns became too consistent to ignore. Nexus primes are mechanical form shifted as internal processors analyze the incoming data at superhuman speeds. These readings do not match any technology in our database. The energy signatures suggest manipulations of space-time that exceed theoretical limits for known physics. Dr. Subin Lee joined Jiwan on the platform, carrying additional data files that contain the results of months of analysis by Earth's best scientists. The phenomena follow a clear pattern. They begin at the edge of each system with what appears to be gravitational manipulation. Asteroids and small moons are drawn toward central collection points, where they are broken down. At the molecular level, the display showed detailed scans of 3 outer rim systems that had suffered what the Council had officially classified as natural disasters. But the new analysis revealed artificial structures the size of small moons, technologies that could disassemble entire worlds and energy patterns that suggested the controlled harvesting of all useful materials. The solar flares that sterilized Kepler 442 were artificial, Subin continued. The asteroid impacts that destroyed the Tau Ceti colonies were guided by external forces. The cosmic storms that wiped out electronics in the Ross 128 system were generated by technologies designed to disable defensive systems before harvesting begins. Queen Speaker Thiss's biomechanical translators struggled to keep up with her rapid chittering. When the translation finally came through, her words carried a note of ancient fear. The swarm's genetic memory contains warnings about the great harvest. Stories passed down through millions of generations speak of harvesters that consume entire galaxies before moving on to the next. Corvin's energy form flickered through several wavelengths before stabilizing in a pattern that other species had learned to recognize as deep concern. The Astral Communion's earliest records speak of the Void Feeders, entities that drove our ancestors to abandon physical form. We believed those legends referred to our natural evolution, but these energy patterns matched descriptions in our most ancient archives. Chancellor Veloc had remained silent during these revelations, but now he spoke with the gravity of someone whose species had survived for millions of years by recognizing genuine threats. The reptilian hegemony's oldest histories tell of the star death that forced our people to flee their original galaxy. We assumed those worlds were destroyed by natural cataclysms, but if these readings are accurate, every species in this chamber has myths or legends about the same enemy, Jiwan said firmly. You have all encountered them before, in your ancient past, but you survived by fleeing or hiding. This time there is nowhere to run. The display changed to show long-range projections based on the observed patterns. The incoming force was massive beyond comprehension, with energy signatures suggesting technologies that could reshape matter at the quantum level. More terrifying still, their approach was methodical and patient, suggesting an intelligence that planned its actions across cosmic timescales. We call them the Devourers, Ji-Wan continued. They follow a pattern that has repeated across millions of years and countless galaxies. They arrive at the rim of each galaxy and begin systematic harvesting of resources, starting with uninhabited systems before moving on to populated worlds. Nothing survives their passage except empty space. Gulrak had stopped laughing. His warriors' instincts recognized a genuine threat even when presented in diplomatic language. How long do we have? Based on their current rate of advancement, they will reach the major inhabited systems within 2 years, Subin replied. However, their harvesting pattern suggests they will begin targeting isolated colonies and outer rim settlements within 6 months. The chamber erupted in concerned conversations as thousands of representatives began calculating the implications for their own species and homeworlds. The 5 major powers maintained their composure, but Ji-Wan could see the rapid exchange of video, data, and communications that indicated emergency consultations with their respective governments. Nexus Prime was the first to ask the obvious question. If this threat is real, why did humans not share this information when it was first discovered? Ji-Wan's expression hardened. Would you have listened? 3 hours ago you were preparing to destroy or enslave my entire species because we expanded too quickly and formed too many alliances. If we had come to you 18 months ago with warnings about an invisible threat from beyond the galaxy, would you have taken us seriously, or would you have dismissed it as human desperation? The mechanical being's sensors flickered as it processed the logical validity of her argument. Analysis indicates high probability that such warnings would have been dismissed as deception or manipulation. More importantly, Ji-Wan continued, we were not certain of our analysis until recently. We needed time to gather sufficient evidence and develop potential countermeasures. That research led us to some disturbing conclusions about galactic military capabilities. She activated a new set of displays showing tactical analyses of the major powers' military forces. Every military in this galaxy is designed to fight other galactic civilizations. Your weapons, ships, and strategies are optimized for conflicts between species that follow similar technological and strategic principles. None of you are prepared to fight an enemy that operates outside those parameters. The reptilian hegemony's massive dreadnoughts appeared on screen, their heavy armor and powerful weapons impressive by galactic standards. Your ships are designed for territorial conquest and occupation. They are built to survive long campaigns and project power across multiple star systems, but they are too slow and inflexible to fight an enemy that can manipulate space-time itself. The Swarm Collective's bioships followed, their organic hulls pulsing with life as they demonstrated their ability to repair damage and spawn new vessels. Your advantage lies in numbers and adaptability, but your ships are designed to operate as part of a unified hive mind. If the enemy can disrupt your communication networks, your entire fleet becomes helpless. The Astral Communion's energy constructs flickered across the display, their ability to phase through matter making them nearly invulnerable to conventional weapons. Your energy-based existence might actually make you more vulnerable to harvesting, since the Devourers appear to consume energy in all its forms, including consciousness itself. The Machine Alliance's geometric vessels demonstrated mathematical precision in their movements and targeting systems. Your strength is logical analysis and optimal tactics, but the Devourers operate according to principles that fall outside known strategic parameters. Your calculations cannot account for enemies that violate the laws of physics as we understand them. Finally, the Savage Clan's crude but powerful war barges filled the display, their massive guns and brutal efficiency a testament to their straightforward approach to warfare. Your weapons are designed to destroy through overwhelming firepower, but the Devourer's technology appears capable of converting destructive energy into useful resources. Your attacks might actually make them stronger. The implications settled over the chamber like a dark cloud. The galaxy's greatest military powers, civilizations that had dominated space warfare for millions of years, were essentially helpless against the approaching threat. Chancellor Veloc spoke with the careful precision of someone whose species had survived cosmic ages by adapting to changing circumstances. The emergency recess lasted 6 hours. During that time, the 5 major powers held urgent consultations with their respective governments, while thousands of smaller species debated humanity's revelations in hushed conversations throughout Concordia Station. The evidence was overwhelming, but accepting it meant acknowledging that everything they had believed about galactic security was wrong. When the council reconvened, the atmosphere had changed completely. Gone was the ceremonial grandeur of a formal judgment. Instead, the chamber buzzed with the urgent energy of beings facing an existential crisis. Emergency communication links connected the session to military commanders and government leaders across the galaxy. Chancellor Veloc spoke first, his ancient composure cracked but not broken. The reptilian hegemony has confirmed the accuracy of human sensor data through our own deep space monitoring networks. The approaching signatures match descriptions in our oldest archives with disturbing precision. Our military analysts have reviewed their own capabilities against the projected threat parameters. He paused, the weight of admitting weakness clearly difficult for a representative of the galaxy's oldest continuous government. Our conventional forces are inadequate. The hegemony's military doctrine is based on conquering and holding territory through superior firepower and defensive positions. Against an enemy that can manipulate space-time and convert matter at the quantum level, our massive dreadnoughts become expensive targets rather than strategic assets. Queen Speaker Thys followed, her chittering translated with unusual rapidity, as her species' hive mind processed the implications at superhuman speeds. The Swarm Collective's analysis confirms the hegemony's conclusions. Our bioships are designed for rapid reproduction and adaptive evolution, but these advantages require time to develop. The approaching enemy appears capable of sterilizing entire systems before our organisms can adapt to their weapons. Her massive form shifted uncomfortably as she continued. More troubling is the enemy's apparent ability to harvest biological matter. Our living ships could provide them with genetic templates for creating their own bioweapons. The swarm's greatest strength might become their advantage. Corvin manifested in a wavelength pattern that other species had learned to associate with deep uncertainty. The astral communion's transcendence beyond physical form was achieved partly to escape material vulnerabilities. However, analysis of the energy signatures suggests the devourers can harvest consciousness itself. Our evolution beyond matter offers no protection against an enemy that consumes energy in all its forms. The admission sent ripples of fear through the chamber. If beings who had achieved near godlike power were vulnerable, what hope did lesser species have? Nexus Prime's response was characteristically direct and mathematical. Machine alliance. Calculations indicate zero probability of survival using existing strategic doctrines. Our forces are optimized for logical tactical scenarios against rational opponents. The approaching enemy operates according to principles that fall outside our computational models. The mechanical being's form shifted to display complex probability matrices. Most significantly, our analysis reveals fundamental flaws in galactic military thinking. All major powers have optimized their forces for fighting each other, creating a strategic equilibrium that has prevented large-scale conflicts for millions of years. This stability has made us collectively vulnerable to external threats operating under different parameters. Gulrak's response was simpler and more direct. The savage clans have never retreated from any battle, but we are not fools. Our war chiefs have reviewed the tactical data and concluded that conventional approaches will fail. Even overwhelming firepower is useless against an enemy that can convert destructive energy into resources. He gestured toward the tactical displays still showing devourer energy signatures. Worse, our straightforward approach to warfare makes us predictable. These enemies have consumed entire galaxies. They have seen every conventional tactic used by countless civilizations. Only approaches they have never encountered might succeed. Admiral Minho Park materialized as a hologram beside G1, his image transmitted from Earth's command center. The human military has spent the past 18 months developing contingency plans based on the assumption that conventional warfare would be ineffective. Our approach emphasizes rapid adaptation, unconventional tactics, and technologies specifically designed to counter unknown threats. The Admiral activated displays showing human military innovations that had puzzled galactic observers for decades, modular ship designs that could be reconfigured during battle, weapon systems that adapted, their output based on target responses, command structures that emphasized individual initiative over centralized control. Every human military unit trains for scenarios involving unknown enemies using unfamiliar technologies. Minho continued. Our officers are taught to assume that their initial strategies will fail and to develop backup plans for situations that have never occurred. This approach has been criticized as inefficient by galactic military analysts, but it may be exactly what is needed. Captain Hyunwoo Choi joined the holographic display, representing Earth's Special Forces units. Human Special Operations Doctrine focuses on deep penetration missions behind enemy lines, operating independently without support from main forces. We have developed techniques for infiltrating unknown installations, sabotaging unfamiliar technologies, and surviving in hostile environments for extended periods. The captain demonstrated equipment and tactics that seemed crude by galactic standards, but were designed for maximum adaptability. Weapons that could be rapidly modified using available materials. Communication systems that could establish networks using any available technology. Survival techniques that assumed no outside support or familiar resources. Most importantly, Hyunwoo continued, human special forces are trained to think like their enemies. We study opponent psychology, predict their decision-making processes, and exploit weaknesses that they do not expect us to recognize. Against the Devourers, this approach might allow us to understand their methods well enough to develop effective countermeasures. Dr. Subin Lee presented the scientific analysis that formed the foundation of human military planning. Our research suggests that the Devourers follow patterns established across millions of years of galactic harvesting. They expect civilizations to respond according to predictable models based on territorial defense, resource conservation, and population preservation. She displayed comparative analyses of extinct civilizations whose remains had been found in devourer-harvested systems. Every species they encountered fought according to conventional military doctrine. They established defensive perimeters, concentrated forces at critical positions, and attempted to preserve their population centers. These approaches failed universally. Human doctrine reverses these assumptions, Subin continued. Instead of defending fixed positions, we emphasize mobility and unpredictability. Instead of preserving resources, we focus on denying them to the enemy. Instead of protecting population centers, we prepare for distributed resistance that can continue even after major losses. The scientific data was disturbing but logical. Every civilization in the galaxy had developed similar approaches to warfare because those approaches were effective against other galactic civilizations. But the Devourers had encountered those same patterns countless times across cosmic history. Jiwon stepped forward to present the comprehensive proposal that humanity had developed during months of secret planning. We propose a unified command structure with human strategic coordination and specialized roles for each major power. This is not human domination over galactic forces, but integration of our approaches with your capabilities. The proposal appeared on displays throughout the chamber, showing organizational charts and tactical doctrines that combined human adaptability with alien strengths. Reptilian heavy units would serve as mobile fortresses capable of rapid redeployment. Swarm bioships would provide reconnaissance and adaptive response capabilities. Astral communion energy beings would handle deep space operations beyond physical limitations. Machine alliance units would manage logistics and technical analysis. Savage clan forces would serve as shock troops for critical breakthrough missions. Each species contributes what they do best, Jiwon explained, but coordinated through human command doctrine that emphasizes flexibility and innovation. Traditional hierarchies and rigid specialization are replaced with fluid structures that can adapt as we learn more about the enemy. The proposal included detailed training programs designed to help alien forces adapt to human tactical approaches. Joint exercises would develop cooperation between species that had never worked together. Technology sharing agreements would combine the best innovations from each civilization. Most importantly, command structures would allow individual units to make independent decisions without waiting for orders from distant headquarters. Chancellor Veloc was the first to respond to the comprehensive proposal. The hegemony has maintained galactic stability for millions of years through proven methods of governance and military organization. What you suggest abandons structures that have been tested across cosmic time. Those structures worked against enemies who followed similar prints 6 months after the Concordia Alliance was formed. The greatest military mobilization in galactic history was underway. The transformation had been painful and sometimes chaotic, but the results were beyond what anyone had imagined possible. Species that had been enemies for millions of years now worked together with an efficiency born of desperation and hope. Jiwan stood on the command bridge of the Alliance flagship Harmony, a vessel that represented everything the new partnership had achieved. The ship's hull was forged from reptilian superalloys and shaped using Savage Clan construction techniques. Its bio-neural networks were grown from swarm genetic templates, while its computational systems ran on Machine Alliance quantum processors. Astral communion energy beings provided power that made conventional reactors obsolete. But the ship's design philosophy was purely human. Instead of the specialized single-purpose vessels favored by other species, Harmony could be reconfigured for any mission within hours. Its modular construction allowed entire sections to be swapped out or modified as situations changed. Its command structure emphasized distributed decision-making rather than centralized control. Admiral Minho Park had relocated his headquarters to the ship, coordinating Alliance forces from a bridge that buzzed with activity from dozens of species. Reptilian tactical officers worked alongside swarm bioanalysts, while Machine Alliance computational specialists collaborated with human strategic planners. The integration had taken months of careful preparation, but the results exceeded every projection. Fleet status report, Minho requested. His words automatically translated into the dozens of languages spoken by the bridge crew. Captain Hyunwoo Choi, now serving as Alliance Special Operations Coordinator, provided the update. We have 1,500 major warships distributed across 12 sectors, with another 3,000 support vessels providing logistics and reconnaissance. Every fleet group includes representatives from all major powers, with human coordination officers managing tactical integration. The numbers were impressive, but everyone knew they represented only a fraction of what the Devourers had brought to previous galactic harvests. Victory would depend on tactics and innovation rather than raw firepower. Dr. Subin Lee approached Jiwan with the latest intelligence reports from deep space monitoring stations. The enemy vanguard has entered the outer rim systems. They are following the predicted pattern, starting with uninhabited worlds rich in rare minerals and energy sources. The tactical displays showed Devourer harvesting operations in terrifying detail. Massive ships the size of small moons surrounded target worlds, while smaller vessels broke down matter at the molecular level. Entire planets disappeared within days, leaving nothing but empty space and the occasional trace element that even the Devourers found unusable. How long until they reach inhabited systems? Jiwan asked. Based on current rates of advancement, approximately 6 weeks, Subin replied. However, we have detected changes in their patterns that suggest they are aware of our preparations. Their reconnaissance vessels are probing deeper into our territory than previous harvests. Yeji Han joined the conversation from her intelligence station. Our analysis indicates they are particularly interested in systems with mixed species populations. They appear confused by the Alliance integration and are spending additional time studying our joint operations. This was encouraging news. The Devourers had perfected their techniques across millions of years by facing species that followed predictable patterns. The Alliance's unprecedented cooperation was creating variables they had never encountered before. What about our countermeasures? Juan asked. Captain Hyunwoo activated displays showing the results of the Alliance's crash technology development program. We have made significant progress on several fronts. The quantum disruption weapons developed through astral communion and Machine Alliance collaboration can interfere with Devourer space-time manipulation. Swarm bioships have been modified with reptilian armor and human adaptive systems. creating vessels that can survive harvesting attempts long enough to gather intelligence. The most promising development was a joint project between human engineers and Savage Clan weaponsmiths. Traditional weapons had proven useless against Devourer technology, but the Alliance had developed projectiles that carried quantum charges capable of disrupting molecular disassembly beams. The real breakthrough came from combining human tactical doctrine with alien capabilities, Hyunwoo continued. Instead of trying to match the enemy's firepower, we are focusing on disrupting their operations and forcing them to adapt to unexpected situations. Admiral Minho studied the tactical projections that covered the bridge's main display. The enemy's greatest advantage is their experience. They have faced every conventional response to their attacks across cosmic history. Our best chance is to present them with situations they have never encountered before. The Alliance strategy was based on this principle. Instead of establishing defensive perimeters around population centers, Alliance forces would use hit-and-run tactics to harass Devourer harvesting operations. Small, fast ships would strike at vulnerable points before disappearing into hyperspace. Mobile bases would provide support from hidden locations that could be abandoned and relocated as needed. Most importantly, the Alliance had prepared for the possibility of major losses. Traditional galactic military doctrine focused on preserving forces and maintaining territorial control. The Alliance accepted that entire fleets might be destroyed while gathering intelligence about enemy capabilities. Supreme Coordinator, came a voice from the communications station. We are receiving reports from Observation Post Omega-7. The Devourer Vanguard has begun operations in the Kepler 438 system. Jiwon felt her stomach tighten. Kepler 438 had been abandoned months earlier, its population evacuated to safer systems. But the attack marked the beginning of active Devourer operations within the galaxy's inhabited regions. All fleet commanders to battle stations, Admiral Minho ordered. Initiate Operation First Strike. The bridge erupted in controlled activity as Alliance forces across 12 sectors began moving toward their assigned positions. This was the moment they had trained for during 6 months of intensive preparation. Jiwon activated the fleet-wide communication system that would carry her words to every ship and every species in the Alliance. Officers and crew of the Concordia. Alliance, today we face an enemy that has destroyed countless civilizations across cosmic time. They expect us to respond according to patterns they have seen millions of times before. She paused, looking around the bridge at beings from species that had been bitter enemies just months earlier, now working together with perfect coordination. But we are not like the civilizations they have faced before. We represent something new in galactic history. Unity achieved not through conquest but through cooperation. Species that chose to work together because they recognized that their differences made them stronger. The tactical displays showed Alliance forces moving into position throughout the outer systems. Reptilian heavy cruisers provided mobile firepower, while swarm bioships conducted reconnaissance. Astral communion energy beings phased through space to establish communication networks beyond physical interference. Machine Alliance vessels coordinated logistics with mathematical precision. Savage Clan raiders prepared for breakthrough attacks against hardened targets. The Devourers harvest galaxies by turning species against each other, exploiting the conflicts and competition that have always defined galactic politics, Jiwon continued. They cannot harvest what they cannot divide. Today we show them that this galaxy is different. Admiral Minho took over the tactical coordination as Alliance forces engaged the enemy vanguard. The initial reports were mixed. Devourer technology was every bit as formidable as projected, capable of disabling conventional weapons and harvesting entire ships in minutes, but the Alliance's adaptive tactics were creating problems the enemy had never faced. First wave reports. Successful disruption of harvesting operations in Sectors 7 and 12, Captain Hyunwoo reported. Enemy forces are showing unusual response patterns, suggesting they are adapting their tactics in real time. This was actually encouraging news. An enemy that could adapt was an enemy that could make mistakes. The Devourer's greatest strength had been their perfected techniques developed across millions of years of identical operations. If they were being forced to improvise, the Alliance might have a chance. Second wave launching now, Admiral Minho announced. All units, remember, your training. Hit hard, gather intelligence, and withdraw before they can adapt. We are not trying to stop them yet, just force them to show us their capabilities. The battle reports flowed in over the next several hours, painting a picture of the most complex military operation in galactic history. Alliance forces struck at Devourer operations from dozens of different angles, each attack designed to test specific enemy capabilities. Some attacks failed completely, with entire squadrons destroyed by weapons that converted matter directly into energy. Others succeeded beyond expectations, disrupting harvesting operations and forcing the enemy to commit additional resources to previously routine operations. But most importantly, CI